ripple effect.
What's up? Another episode of Ripple Effect Podcast, end of the year episode. This is a Patreon podcast. And if you guys aren't familiar with what a Patreon podcast is, it's a podcast I do from time to time. I attempt to do it once a month, but sometimes it's a little more than that. It's 6 weeks apart or whatnot. But I do from time to time with my Patreon supporters. So you can donate as little as $1 a month. And you can go to rippleeffectpodcast.com or rickyvrans.com or go in the show description of the audio or video version of any of my episodes and find these links. And you can donate as little as $1 a month and join us on these Patreon podcasts. You can hang out for a little bit. You can say something, not say something, hang out for as little or as long as you would like. You can connect, of course, with myself or other listeners that join us on these episodes. Are always fun. And it's a great way of getting yourself on iTunes and Spotify and on an episode of a podcast if you've never done one. And it's just always a good time. And I never know who's waiting and how many people are going to hang out. So I already have some people waiting. I'm going to let them in now. Let's do it. And let's see where we go from here, guys. And hopefully everybody's having a great year. Let me see. Minimal. And people are jumping in. Oh, we got a lot of, we have Sean, Alec. What's up, Ronnie?
What's up, man?
How you been?
All good.
Sean, I haven't seen Sean in a while. What's up, Sean?
Hey, what's happening, Ricky?
How was everybody's holidays?
Ooh, it was all right. Not like they normally were. It's completely different. But I mean, it's been different for the last 3 years. Just an extension of it.
This year really didn't feel a little bit closer to normal than past years.
Not for my family, like because my sister's side is the COVID idiots and the the extremists are over there, and so if I didn't they don't want people around that didn't participate in that thing.
That sucks.
It boggles my mind that people are still making this a big deal. Like it just, I can't understand it. I'm like, there's so much evidence now, and it's almost completely accepted by even mainstream publications where they're talking about people possibly being harmed from it. I remember the first time they proposed the idea of a vaccine, and this was before it was even released, and I was, sharing stuff on Facebook and Twitter and all the stuff about mRNA technology and how it could be dangerous and all this stuff. I was getting flagged left and right. People were saying that, there's no evidence that vaccines are harmful and all this stuff. And now they're openly talking about it. So, I mean, in a way, we've come a long way. I feel like it's, at least in the vaccine discussion, I feel like we've made some progress because I think a lot of people who've never questioned them are now much more open to questioning vaccines, which I think is a good thing. But yeah, I mean, it's amazing that there still are those people out there. Weirdly enough, we kind of had my little family get together was slightly different. It was a little bit more normal than usual. I think last year there were still some people who were, like you said, timid being around people or in a group. There's still a few people. It's a mix. I mean, my family's kind of a mix of some people that are like, they don't give a F. And then some of the people who are still, a little bit afraid, or they don't know, they're still doing well, I don't know, so I'm playing it safe type thing. And Del Bigtree had a great line on one of his recent high wire shows where he's like, isn't it funny how quickly they went from trust the science to well, we just didn't have enough information. We didn't know. Like now they're like backtracking and they're like, well, I know we told you to trust the science and all the experts. And now that like shit hit the fan and there's obviously tons of evidence of heart inflammation and all this other stuff. Now people are like, well, we just didn't know, or we had to do something. It's like it was an emergency. I'm like, why didn't you say that right in the beginning of that? Like, hey, there's a risk in taking this thing, and we think we're doing the right thing, but this could go poorly. And the truth is, the reason why I didn't say that is because they didn't really care. They knew they were lying to you. That's why all this like Twitter files bullshit. It's like all the rest of us in the alternative community, like I'm not even paying any attention to Twitter files. People are asking my opinion. I'm like, my opinion. I'm like, what are you learning that's new? I'm like, what do you like? Yes, they're spying on every single aspect of your life. Yes, Twitter and social media are colluding with government and CIA and FBI. I'm like, what part of this is new to you? And it's kind of like the Edward Snowden thing, where it's just like maybe the good that comes out of it is the fact that it's coming from not a Alex Jones. It's coming from people that the general public would consider more credible. So maybe coming from Matt Taibbi and some of these other journalists, and because Elon Musk is the one highlighting this, and he's obviously very famous, maybe there will be some good that comes out of this. Because I think some people, like, we keep saying like, oh, we know our phones listen to us, we know, but like, I don't know if people understand the extent of that. Like, your phone is paying attention to how you swipe. It's paying attention to people in the room, other voices in the room. It's paying attention to your locations, other people's locations who are near you. I mean, it's paying attention to what you're looking at, what you're seeing, what you're hearing, what you're saying, like every aspect. It's, every tendency you may or may not have there, it's being tracked. So this idea of like, oh, well, they're just, using it for marketing. It's like maybe, or you finally realize like they're using it for marketing unless the CIA wants help for something and tells them to do something, and then they're using that information to, against you. And it was, look at the contact tracing during COVID, where out of nowhere everybody's phone had this app that was downloaded that could do contact tracing. And it's like, I didn't ask it to do that. I didn't turn it on. I didn't, install this app. Where did it come from? Well, it's like, well, if they can do that, obviously that means they have full control of your phone, and you don't have to give it any permission because you've given them every permission, under the sun to do whatever they want. Because every time we download something, oh, do you agree to these terms and services? Yes. Do you agree to yes? Do you agree to that? Yes. I mean, nobody reads it. There's a great documentary that was way ahead of its time. I don't know if any of you guys watched it, called Terms and Services May Apply. And it's I mean, this must have come out, I wouldn't say early 2000, mid 2000. I don't know. It was a while ago. It was before people realized how serious this issue really is. But it was way ahead of their time, and they went into dissecting like all the psychology that went into how they worded things, why there was so much to read, why the font was so small, certain things that they put at the end of the paragraphs instead of the front of the paragraph. Like all they used every technique possible to deter you from reading it, and that was like not accidental. It's not like, oh, this is too long, so I'm just going to agree to it. Like it's not too long by accident. It's not difficult to read by accident. It's all on purpose. So it's like, yeah, it's insane. Like, the podcast just started and I already can't shut the fuck up. I should let you guys talk.
Oh, you're funny, man.
It sounds good, man. But you're right, man. It's the Twitter files it's everything we knew. It's just confirming it. And I'm with you. The problem I have though when I'm trying to talk about this stuff is the people that I'm talking to has the 2020 information. So when they're saying like mask works, vaccines works, I'm like, dude, have you not listened to the news in the past 2 years? It has changed, but they're still like they listened for a year and then they stopped listening and went back to work, and they still believe the news from 2 years ago and science, I guess science in quotes from 2 years ago, and they haven't updated, so that's a big issue. But I'm heading out to take a smoke. I'll be back. Continue, guys.
Yeah, that was it's all just kind of interesting just to watch it all play out. Good thing that I saw though, Whitney Webb, man, she's doing some things, isn't she? She's getting around now.
Yeah, no, well, don't take that the wrong way, but yes.
Well, yeah, no, not in the wrong way. She's getting around in a good way.
No, yeah, she was on my show, Jessica Rose, recently, but I know before she went on all those big shows, like we're talking about coming back on the Ripple Effect podcast, and that's when she told me that she was going on some of these bigger shows. So I was super excited that the fact that she got like mainstream, like she's on Glenn Beck, she's on the Patrick Bet David show, she's on what else did she do? She did a couple other big shows, and
JFK Jr.'s little movie. She had a clip in there.
yeah. So that's awesome. And well, I mean, Tim Dillon definitely,
Or RFK. Sorry.
help. Yeah, not JFK. Say JFK. I didn't pick up on that. And yeah, well, Tim Dillon, I'm sure helped because he was like one of those mainstream guys that I don't even know how he ran into her work, but he was like this comedian. And then when the Epstein thing happened, he would have Whitney Webb on. I'm like, how does he even know who Whitney Webb is? Like, and I didn't pay a lot of attention to him before, so I don't know if maybe he was always like kind of one of those mainstream guys that would dip their toe in conspiratorial topics from time to time. But that obviously was a huge help because there's a lot of people who listen to Tim Dillon just because he's hilarious and he's a very popular comedian. And then they get exposed to great work like Whitney Webb, which is great, So it's always great to have somebody like Tim Dillon kind of exposing these topics and these researchers to a different crowd that might not be familiar with these topics and stuff. So it's great. I mean, it's crazy that like you could talk about Epstein on Facebook and on YouTube and whatever social media or video platform you want. You could talk about any of these topics. The one topic that you couldn't, because I mean people were talking about Epstein before COVID, but it's like the lockdown that they did on any alternative researcher or information on COVID was like a whole nother level. Because I was thinking about that the other day. I'm like, I I'm not sure how often I would get flagged or get in any trouble on YouTube prior to COVID. And I was talking about all the same topics and everything got just ramped up. But that's also the reason why I think Rumble's doing so well. And that's the reason why, all these alternative platforms, Odyssey, BitChute still doing well, and all these other platforms are doing well. I think it is because, the last couple of years people got sick of YouTube. So it's what I mean, it is the end of 2022. Are you guys optimistic, pessimistic? I mean, you think 2023 will be some big event's going to happen, so they're going to push some agenda harder. I mean, obviously you're seeing the climate change and that type of stuff, or climate change. Well, because I always fuck it up because I used to call it global warming, now they call it climate change. It just term when the science doesn't make sense. But how do you guys feel about the future? Do you think like we're trending in a good direction or bad direction?
Didn't WEF just come out and say that we need to have climate lockdowns?
Yeah, they're doing it in Europe in a few countries.
Yeah,
Now,
what is up with the UK, man? Like, I feel like, I mean, Sean, have you seen
it's not only the UK, it's also other countries.
in Europe?
Yeah, I think the Netherlands and France, it's the big cities. They're doing the 15 minutes. The thing that you have read about the UK, they're doing it at
What about
multiple countries.
Finland? Must be freaked out about global warming because then you can't ice skate, right? You can't.
Finland is trying to build our third nuclear power plant, and that's what we're focusing on.
Do you like one thing I found, especially after like COVID toned down and like it didn't become the headline and the story. And I almost feel like, we're talking about COVID as almost like it's in the past. And obviously it's not. I'd like to always clarify that. Obviously, there's still a lot of things that are going on and a lot of lasting effects of COVID. But I will say once it ramped down a little bit, I almost needed a mental break from like keeping up with the everyday news, because during COVID, you're talking about like 2 years of your life, 2.5 years maybe of your life, where at least for myself, I'm like just balls deep in every COVID related story, and I'm keeping up with everything, and I'm listening to every podcast, watching every documentary, every interview, every doctor that's speaking and putting out a lecture or video or interview. I'm listening to it. And it was like I didn't feel like it was fatiguing at the time because I was so motivated by the fight and the battle of like trying to get this information out there and trying to wake people up to what was really going on. But afterwards, I kind of felt worn down, and like just like after like when you work overtime and you work too many hours and you're just burned out and you're like, I just need to sit on my bed or couch and just like recharge and reset. I kind of felt like that. And now I find myself, at least at this year, where I'm like, you know what, I'm going to focus a little bit more on enjoying life a little bit, and I'm going to try to pick the stories that I think are extra important, but I can't invest that much energy in every story every day because there's just too much going on all the time. And I know, like, I don't know about you, Sean, but I know, like, Ronnie, for example, like, you seem to do a pretty good job of keeping up with like daily stories. I feel like you always know what's going on. Like, oh yeah, Tim Pool said this, and then what, I'm like, how the fuck does Ronnie have time to? I'm like, he's like one of the best researchers ever. I'm like, this dude doesn't get enough credit because you bring up stuff all the time, even on these shows. Sometimes I'm like, really? I didn't hear. Oh, I didn't know about that. I didn't. So it's like you do a good job of keeping your finger on the pulse of what's going on in the mainstream and in the alternative media community.
I've had the Christmas break now. I've listened to 2 podcasts this week, and I feel like I'm such a loser because I don't know anything what's happened this past week.
I'm glad you brought that up because that is that is true. So this is the other issue of like disconnecting and detaching from time to time. You feel like there's shit going on that you're not keeping up with. Like I always feel like that. Like anytime I'm like, dude, I need some time to like chill and like detach myself. Next thing I know, I'm like, dude, is there like there's stuff going on that I'm not aware of. Like somebody will like it drives me nuts when people bring stuff up at the gym to me and they're like, oh, have you heard about this story? And for so long, I'd always be like, yeah. And this is my information and this is what I have and this is what I've heard and whatever. And like uh, probably the last or the second half of this year, definitely the last quarter of this year, people will bring stuff up to me, and I'm like, I don't know, I haven't looked into it. I'm like, oh, I'm not sure, and I'm like, and I feel like an idiot. I do because I'm like, wait, people actually expect me to like know like the ins and outs of every story, and typically I at least know a little bit where I'm like, I can give you something new that you maybe haven't heard. But it's so true. It's like this balancing act of like, if you're keeping up with every single story all the time, you feel like, okay, I'm doing a good job of like not missing anything. And if anything important happens, I'm listening to it. I'm hearing all the perspectives. I have all the information. And then you're like, you know what? I'm freaking overwhelmed or I'm burnt out. Or sometimes you're like, I'm spending a lot of time focusing on stories that in the whole scheme of things, the overall picture, like maybe aren't that important. There's so many daily stories that it's like, how do you pick and choose which ones to focus on? And then you're like, let me detach, let me listen to just less. I'm the same way. Like a lot of my research comes from other podcasts. So I'm like, oh, let me like tone down on the podcast listening this week. And then next thing you know, I'm like, what's going on in the world? I'm like, well, is there stuff going on that I don't know about? Like you feel lost. You feel like that feeling of like going to a party and you don't know anybody. You're just like, that's how I feel all the time when I don't listen to podcasts.
And on that thing, I have one guy you should really have on. You should contact Tom Nelson. He's as he's deep dive in the climate topic.
Has he been
at a
on the show?
at a level that I've never heard. I'm following his podcast and it's incredible. You should have that guy on and give him a platform.
And what's his name? Tom Nelson?
Yeah,
That sounds
Tom Nelson.
some
Yeah.
country singer.
Maybe he was in the past life, but
And
apparently he's been in the climate discussion for like 15 years and he knows everybody that has ever had an I mean, if they have an opinion in the climate topic, he has talked to them because he's like the Alex Jones of climate topics, and he doesn't get the credit. And I had him on, and he did his thing, and I listened to his podcast afterwards. Listened to like 20 podcasts he did, and I'm like, holy shit, this guy needs more attention. So yeah, just simping for a random dude here, but yeah,
no,
you should.
I love little gems of guests like that. I mean, when I had, when I was really excited about having Michael Millerman on, or the host of Ancient Greece Revisited, or the first time I had Jessica Rose on, like I love having these lesser known people, and at least lesser known in some cases they're well known, but not they're lesser known in maybe my community. And I love having them on because it's like they'll give me a perspective that maybe I haven't entertained, new information, a new voice. Uh, I'm sure, I'm a podcast consumer just like you guys. I'm sure that you guys get sick of hearing the guests that do the rounds, and then next thing you know, it's like, okay, he's on this show, he's on that show, he's on, and it's like sometimes I'll listen to the same guest on multiple shows because I think certain hosts have a good they have a good technique in trying to get maybe new information out of them, or they understand that, like, okay, they're asked a lot of these similar questions, so let me go at it from a different approach. So I think that's cool, but it's always better when you have somebody who's, the first time you hear them in the community of podcasts that we kind of all live in. Like, if you can get them first, that's awesome. That's the coolest thing ever, So I'll definitely check them out. Tom Nelson. And then you said he was on your show, so you can hook me up with some contact info.
Yeah, for sure. I'll send you the emails and shit. But also, when you talk about the things, when you're when you've talked about one thing too much, I had Jessica Rose just a week before you had, again for the second time. And I felt bad because she came on and she was like, I'm so sick or tired of talking about COVID. I was like, okay. I was thinking we should talk like the vaccine issues. And she was like, I'm so fucking, if you don't get it, you're dead. Like, go fuck yourself. That's basically what she told me. I was like, okay. Well, then we had a discussion about everything else but the vaccine issue. And I was like, okay. I mean, I brought up in the like last 10 minutes, I was like, well, you did write in your Substack about they're changing how they're counting some stuff and they're deleting some stuff in the background and stuff like that. So, but I get her. If I would have in her position, if you've been looking at the how many people have died from the vaccines, I would also be like, oh, fuck, I can't handle this shit. So yeah, that it was a surprise to me because I was like, yes, I get her on again, and she was like, ah, fucking, I hate this talking about this. So I was like, ah.
That's always a dilemma of being a host, right? It's like sometimes you have somebody on for a reason. You're like, okay, let me have them on. Like, we're going to talk about this. But then you're always concerned, like, okay, are they sick about talking about this topic? Do I want to bring this up again? Maybe it's something my audience doesn't know, but I know that they've done interviews and it's no different than like when I had Rob Wolf on my show, who, he's the one who created Element Electrolytes, and he's also the one who wrote Sacred Cow, and he's been on Rogan's, he's been on everybody's show, and it's always like, oh, how'd you come up with Element? How'd you come up? It's like how'd you get into keto and paleo? And you can, I've heard the majority of his interviews, so like I know he's told that story over and over again. But then when I have him on my show the first time, you know, it's like, well, my audience probably hasn't heard him tell the story. So it's like, how do I not ask him to tell the story? So it's like, it is this dilemma. The cool thing about Dr. Jessica, what you should have done is like, you should have got your lighter and be like, oh, Jessica, you don't want to talk about COVID? Well, let me just show you my notes and then start burning. Like, here goes my notes. I have nothing left. But the cool thing about her is that you can wing it with her. You could talk to her about just about anything, and she'll flow with it. Um, I'm sure you guys have heard the story about the first time she was on my show. The same thing. Like we talked about everything and anything. I think we started off talking about heavy metal, and then we went into, other stuff. And she's always an interesting guest to have on. Like if you ever just want to have an interesting conversation, and you're like, you know what, let me find somebody, maybe I have an opening in my schedule. Let me find somebody just to come on, and I'll just riff with. She's awesome. Like I could do a show with her, like weekly or monthly, and just like no script whatsoever, and just like, hey, let's talk once a month and just bullshit. And having guests like that are it's awesome because you don't really have to do any research or be up to date with anything. You can just kind of throw out whatever's on your mind, and she'll go with it. And yeah, it's a it's funny, like being I'm sure you've learned this, Sean and Ronnie, like everybody thinks like, oh, being a podcast host must be easy because you just, and it's like, there's always these internal dilemmas and things that you're thinking about, maybe sometimes overthinking about. It's like, okay, do I ask the same questions they've been asked already? Even though my audience might have not heard the answer, do I, what type of guest do I have on? Do I stay too silent and then put pressure on my guests to kind of fill in the time and space? That's another thing. Like, I'm not to say that I'm not a talker, or I can't fill air, time and air, but empty space in the podcast. But it's definitely one of those things where sometimes I find myself doing it because I'm trying to be polite, and I'm like, okay, well, I don't want all the pressure to be on them to fill up an hour, right? Because it's not easy for everybody to fill up an hour of talking. So it's like, okay, let me make this podcast easier for them by like, let me, let it be a dance where they take the lead sometimes and I take the lead and I fill up a little bit of time. Maybe I spark something that new for them to talk about. And so you try to do that, and then sometimes you find yourself ranting, and you're like, wait, I've been talking too much, and now the listeners are probably going to be pissed. So it's like it's hard. That's why I always say, like, just have a casual conversation however you want to have it, and if people like it, hopefully they do, but if they don't, just keep doing what you enjoy doing, and then don't worry about the rest. So it's what's up, Jeff?
How are you?
Good. What have you been listening to lately? You've been listening to podcasts. We've been talking about what we've been listening to or not listening to, and then also if we're optimistic or pessimistic about the future.
I just listened to your one with Peter McCullough again.
Yeah.
That was a great podcast. I really enjoyed listening to him.
Yeah, it's funny because I thought he was a little upset. Well, I don't know if he was upset with me, but when I had him on, the last time I had him on the Union of Unwanted, I had him on, and I was talking to Richard Fleming, Dr. Richard Fleming, and they both ended up joining us on not I wouldn't say recent, yeah, probably recent, like a couple months ago, podcast of the Union of Unwanted, and Richard Fleming just like completely dominated the show. And I know for some people that's fine, and people don't care, but I think Peter McCullough always comes with so much information. He always has so much important topics and subjects and data to share with the audience, that I felt like he was a little disappointed that he didn't get more time to kind of share that information. And but yeah, I mean, what a great guy. As you heard on the show, like, I gave him praises for coming on the Union of Unwanted right after the Rogan episode was released. I mean, all the harassment that I'm sure he deals with in regards to just like by other doctors and people trying to take his license away. And I mean, you hear about lawsuits, and I mean, there's just so much, going on in the background, and so much that he sacrificed for for this message and getting this information out there. It's just, people don't realize that. It's like I told Dr. McCullough, if people didn't hear the episode that he was on the last Ripple Effect podcast, it's easy for me, or maybe, many other people like me, to be outspoken because chances are I'm not going to lose my job or lose any work or whatever. I might just piss off some people, but I might, financially, it's not going to hit me the same way it would hit him when he's in that field. So to me, it's like, to see people like him and other people that are in that field and they're actually pursuing, that's how they pay the bills, and they're sacrificing or possibly sacrificing that to be outspoken. That really tells you something about them. That tells you that they truly, truly care about doing what's right. And and it would have been really easy for him just to be like many doctors. And when people in their personal lives say, "Hey, what's your opinion on what's going on?" you share it. But publicly, you're like, I'm not touching this, and let me just keep getting paid. Let me just keep, living my life the way I've been living it. But he did the opposite. He went on every show that would let him talk. He would, he basically knew that he was putting his career, in jeopardy, and yet he did it anyway. So I think it's hard to look at him and not be completely just grateful that we had somebody that well spoken with that type of resume that was willing to go against the grain and put everything on the line to help spread the truth.
The disappointing part about what you were seeing that was coming from people is that not paying attention to the common sense of what you just said, right? The common sense of like, okay, why would somebody, Simone Gold's another one who, she's a doctor. She's also got she has that dual thing that makes her a doctor and a lawyer at the same time. And I mean, this is not just like 2 years of school, 3 years of school. I mean, you're talking, 6, 8, that's a commitment in school, not to mention a financial commitment to pay for it. And so if you're willing to put all that, like you said, on the line, you as a person, you have to go and explore more. Why is somebody willing to do that? You know what I mean? But most people never got past that at the Capitol. Remember all of them in the white coats?
Yeah. Well, Simone.
No, yeah, she was the leader of that one, or one of them.
Right. She ended up doing. I was trying to get her on the show, and right before she was supposed to come on, she ended up doing time. Like she ended up, and it's like, what?
No, because she did it because she was at January 6th. Oh, that's what she did the time for.
Because I know who her representative, I can't remember who I was in contact with, told me that, like, unfortunately she can't come on the show because she only gets 15-minute collect calls from prison. So yeah.
Can I jump in faster? Because I listened to Tucker Carlson on what's the young global leader from Hawaii?
Oh, Tulsi Gabbard.
Tulsi's podcast. And I was intrigued because Tucker basically said, I'm 50 years old, I have money, and I don't give a shit. I'm gonna say whatever I want. And he's really pushing it. Like, he is talking about the vaccine issue, he's talking about the World Economic Forum, he's talking about basically everything. Do we really think he's going for, like, I don't give a fuck? Or what's happening with that guy? I find it interesting.
I think he has fuck you money. And just like Joe Rogan had fuck you money. And I think, the scariest thing about people who have fuck you money is that they could possibly say fuck you to the elite, and you can't control them. And I mean, Joe Rogan goes everywhere with security. I mean, he has, I am positive he has had threats. He has had political people trying to sway him to interview him or say one thing or don't say another thing. I am sure when you're at his level that there's a lot of sketchy things that has happened. There's been and he probably doesn't talk about it on purpose, but there's, I don't think he goes around with security, just for I mean, the dude's a black belt. I mean, he could probably defend himself pretty easily. And most of his life, you know, I'm not sure he was afraid of confrontation. Now he goes around with security. I mean, I mean, I'm just speculating, but it could be for multiple reasons. And you know, when you, it's funny because if you listen to enough Rogan podcasts, sometimes little things will like, you know, seep out and he'll like just kind of scratch the surface on some topics. And one of the things that he had scratched the surface on that he doesn't really go into detail in is like some of the stuff that's happened to him personally since, you know, the whole COVID thing and even the whole political thing, you know, talking about having politicians on his podcast and how like he's been contacted by a lot of politicians who want to come on and he wouldn't have them on and it's not because they care about talking to Joe Rogan. It's because they know that it's just a platform that they can use for their benefit. And Rogan's like, no, I'm not gonna, you know, I'm not gonna just let you use my platform because you know it's powerful and it can help you get more votes. So it's like, you know, I give him a lot of credit. And I'll tell you, early in the COVID lockdowns and stuff, I could barely listen to Joe Rogan, and I didn't listen to many episodes at all. And every once in a while, the only reason I would listen to him is because deep inside, I wanted to believe that eventually he was gonna come to our side and he was gonna, you know, see through all this bullshit. And you know, it's like when he had Rhonda Patrick on and he debated her, you know, more or less on the vaccine. I'm like, this is awesome. I'm like, he's coming to our side little by little. But it's you know, it's not an easy thing to do to host a show that big, knowing that, you know, everything you say or you could possibly say just creates a ripple effect that none of us could even fathom. You know, like it becomes headline news. I mean, for a while, and they've toned it down a little bit, but like for a while, like everything that happened on a Rogan podcast, somebody would make a news, you know, some clickbait news article out of, and it was like, oh, Rogan guest says this. And then you listen to it and you're like, that's not like, well, that's not a big deal at all. Or you listen to a podcast, like this happened to me quite a few times where I would listen to a podcast, a JRE episode, and nothing in it seemed controversial or newsworthy. And then next thing you know, it's like you see all these stories coming out about that episode. Like, oh, this guest said this or Rogan said that. Or and I'm like, how do you guys even like pretend that, you know, that like this isn't just a casual conversation? You know, it's like they don't care at all about taking things out of context. So it's you know,
He was a new boogeyman. That's all. He was you know, this month's boogeyman. They need one all the time.
Well,
What do you
funny that now, like after COVID, all of a sudden a lot of that stuff toned down. You don't hear about Brian Callen's accusations, or you don't hear about like all the other people that were or surrounding Rogan. Have you noticed that he was being attacked and that everybody around him was being attacked at the same time? You know, Chris D'Elia, like all these people were being attacked at the same time. And it's like there's some character assassination going on, and they were all being attacked. And if you couldn't directly attack Rogan, you're attacking his friends. You're making people like think like I don't even want to be associated with this guy because anybody who is being attacked and just scares. And that's the thing, like all this thought criminal bullshit, you know, that's the thing that's really scary. It's like this, you know, now you have Kanye West, of course. Do I agree with Kanye West? No. I mean, do I think he's probably borderline crazy? Yeah, he definitely is. I mean, you hear him talk long enough, you're like, there's no way this dude is not like somewhat crazy. And because he doesn't even make sense. And of course, like his fans would say that he's playing like 4D chess because that's always the cop out to anything that doesn't make sense. It's always like, oh, they're just levels ahead of you, you know, and steps ahead of you. But no, I don't think he should be banned or canceled or not have access to his bank account or any of that stuff. And anybody who because we know like there's always like, oh well, this is just a exception to the rule, and we know that that's always a slippery slope down the path of like, okay, well, we don't think canceling's okay, but he's the exception to the rule. We have to cancel him because he's bad. And it's like, okay. And then you say the next person's the exception to the rule. And then next thing you know, it becomes the rule. Then it's just like, now we just can cancel people whenever the hell we want. And it is what it is. You know, it's same thing with Andrew Tate. You know, it's like, honestly, I could care less about Andrew Tate until he started getting canceled. Then all of a sudden, I was like more fascinated with what he possibly had to say that was so horrible that people wanted to cancel him. He became the forbidden fruit. So to me, you don't do any good doing that. I think it makes the person more interested. It's like that guy who was on Alex Jones with Kanye West, Nick something. What was his name?
Fuentes.
What was it?
Nick Fuentes or something like that.
Yeah, I actually thought his name looked Portuguese. I'm like, I wonder if he's Portuguese. Yeah, he had like almost like a Spanish or Portuguese last name, but he didn't know shit about the guy. I've heard his name, once or twice maybe. Didn't know anything about his opinions, but everybody's like, this guy, oh my God, this guy, met with Trump and hanging out with Kanye, and I'm like, okay, well now I'm more intrigued, and like if you guys weren't telling me that he was banned off every platform, I could care less. He's just another dude with an opinion. But the fact that he was canceled on all these platforms, I was more intrigued. I'm like, who is this guy? And like, what's so dangerous about his ideas? So it's to me, sometimes it becomes counterproductive, canceling these people. And because there's always going to be a place and a platform for their voice, it might be harder to find. But people like myself, it's like, okay, well, you cancel the shit out of Andrew Tate. Well, where can I find him? Because I'm intrigued now. Let me go find him on Rumble. Let me go find him on whatever other platform he might be on. So yeah, without a doubt. Again, I think it's a slippery slope where you end up going down this road of like, well, if it's okay to cancel him, why? And the crazy thing is, I know this is kind of a silly example and people have used it a lot recently, but it's like nobody talked about freezing Jeffrey Epstein's bank account or any child trafficker or any person who's actually like had committed actual crimes with victims. It's like I don't understand, like, how can you justify doing this to people who are just thought criminals who you can't say there's no proof or any evidence that I know of what their opinions or their opinions leading to any violence or anything like that. So to me, it's like, how can people be okay with this? How can people be, it's like, regardless if you agree, like agreeing with him is not even, it's same thing with that Kyrie Irving documentary. What was it called? It was called Negroes to something. I can't remember the title of the documentary, but it was the one that Kanye West
and that's when Ricky got canceled.
That's what I got. No, it was called no, but it was something. No, it wasn't. It was about. Honestly, I didn't watch the whole documentary. I've only saw a couple clips. I believe it had something to do with like defending the perspective that Kanye had that Africans were or black people were Jewish. And it was kind of proposing that whole idea and kind of a different perspective on history of the African people. And so to me, it's like I was only more intrigued with that documentary because everybody made a big deal out of it. Like I went to go find it. I'm like, where is it? Is it available on Amazon Prime? Where is it available? Let me look for it. So to me, like I said, it just there's an example, or maybe it's just me. I mean, maybe I'm just like I keep assuming everybody's like this. Or do you guys have the same like reaction when somebody can't is saying this is
of course if they cancel people, we look for them. Owl 51, what say you? He's the one with no picture. He should say something if he's here, or maybe not. In that case, someone else could. I agree. I'm always looking for, if they cancel someone, I'm looking for it. That's that's the basic thing you should do. Just to look what they have for opinions and then continue from there.
Jeff, John, my muted friend, anybody? Oh,
no, there he goes.
Hey guys.
What?
Actually, I think you're spot on. It's you take it away and they want it more. It's just like the kid in a ball and a fire engine. Give him the choice, picks the ball, take the fire engine away. He wants the fire engine now. It's just human nature.
So, if you don't mind, you don't have to say your name, but where are you calling from? The East Coast, West Coast, South Africa, Asia?
Oh, I'm over in Denver.
Oh, nice.
Yeah.
You ever
You
run?
need to see the Avalanche shirt he's wearing.
Mm-hmm. Yes, sir. Yeah, my first time being on the Patreon, so just kind of wanted to be on a fly on the wall and kind of putter around. Got the house to myself, so.
Biggest question is, who is your favorite
Oh,
Finnish man?
Miko.
Oh yeah, yeah.
Wait,
Yeah, no,
is this a
he's
hockey?
great.
I don't know anything about hockey.
Yeah,
Oh, Ricky.
Avalanche took the Stanley Cup last year, and one of their best players, actually two of their best players are Finn.
Nice. Well, I know Pookie from Finland. You know Pookie plays for Norwich City.
No, we never heard about him.
He's from Finland. He's one of the
Yeah, I know. I'm joking with you.
okay. I was gonna say he's like the best Finnish soccer player. There's no way you don't know who he is.
Of course, I know.
Like I know they got relegated, but they
The Finnish football team is like the C team in ice hockey, so who gives a shit?
Ronnie, what the hell do you got going on in the background there? What is all that?
You know, the QAnon map, as everyone should have in the background. No, I'm like, okay, yeah, it's a guy that went on the higher side chats like 2 years ago, and he had some great points, and I was like, I need to buy this flyer, and I have it on my wall. And I actually yesterday I went back and I went through the package that he sent me, and I got a message. I didn't read it before, but I read it yesterday, and I had a postcard, and it said, "Thank you for fighting in the Nordic countries." Like, and he said something else, but he had the "where we go, where we go." What's the QAnon phrase?
Where we go one, we go all.
Oh yeah,
There it is.
and he
Yeah.
signed that, and I was like, okay, nice. Because I was looking for a document for something else, and I found it in my papers. I was like, okay, I found. But yeah, I have the wallpaper. This is what I have on my wall, just to the right of me, and it's a big one. I like it.
You know who did something like that was Ryan Dawson. He did that with the Epstein map, sort of like the same sort of thing that the FBI does and traces a thing. And he had this big ass thing that he was selling or trying to sell during the lockdowns, and he was having a problem getting it from Japan to the United States and the UK. That's where he's at. I haven't heard from about that guy in a long time.
well, that's what happens when you're when you burn so many bridges. I mean, he was on my show years ago. We had like I don't know, it was almost like a 3-hour show, and you know, he can be a little, you know, come off a little arrogant at times. Of course, I'm being polite, and he's but you know, it's he has good information. I'm a fan of all different types of people, and I've always saw it as a challenge of maybe some people that are harder to get along with. I'm like, okay, well, this is my, you know, let me see if I can figure this person out and connect with them and maybe get along with them, and you know, when other people maybe struggle to. And but he just, you know, I don't know if I ever talked about it on the show, but what caused it was we had a disagreement about I don't know if it was well, we probably had a disagreement about many events that happened on 9/11, but we disagreed on one of the forensic, you know, things, and which, you know, I didn't think it was a big deal. We had a discussion. We ended up talking about, I don't know, UFC, and I don't know if we talked about comic books and Marvel and a bunch of other stuff. It was a 3-hour conversation, and it was a long time ago, so I know we covered a lot of stuff, but I don't remember exactly. But I thought, you know, it ended in a really positive note. We had a fun discussion. I did, you know, I think a good job of getting along with them and just not causing any friction anytime I disagreed with them. And after the show, because in my intro, because as you guys know, I record my intros afterwards. After in the intro that I added to the beginning of the show, I just said how like we disagreed on some things, and, you know, including this or whatever it was specifically that we disagreed on. And he he said something like in the comments after I posted this when I was still on YouTube that he's like, oh, I didn't know he was gonna. I don't know if he called me. He said I was gonna turn into a retard in the intro or so. He said something like, obviously not very nice, and I got pretty pissed off about it because I'm like, dude, we had a good discussion for a couple hours. Like, why would you throw an insult at me? Like, why wouldn't you just be like, hey, like, dude, I disagree with you. I think you're wrong. But like, there's no, I'm not gonna. But the problem with, and it's not just him. There's quite a few people in, especially the 9/11 community, where they just shit on people who they don't agree with, and it's like, like one thing I disagreed with Ryan on that I remember vividly because something that I had a much stronger opinion on because some of the other stuff, the forensic stuff, and I mean, I'm open to different philosophies. I'm open to different perspectives on what happened. I'm not married to any idea. So I'm cool with that. But the one thing that I wasn't really cool with was like him saying that like Jason Burmis and Loose Change were purposely putting in wrong information in that documentary. To me, that's like was such a ridiculous statement because that documentary was the red pill for many, many, many people. So if you think it was some type of psyop, or if you think, whatever it may be, that they were purposely trying to trick people and giving them wrong information, I mean, I don't even know what the purpose of doing that it would be, because at the end of the day, the outcome was people questioned what happened on that day, regardless, what they believed and didn't believe. But it created a ripple effect of people being skeptical of the official story. So from my perspective, it created more good than bad, right? It's the same thing. Like you can use the example of Alex Jones and like, okay, he says this or he says that, or sometimes he makes anybody who questions the mainstream narrative look like a tinfoil hat, lunatic, crazy conspiracy theorist person. But then I'm like, okay, but how many people did he, wake up to how the world really works? Like it's the same thing. Like he got demonized for the Sandy Hook thing. Like he was at Waco. He was at, he's been around doing his radio shows and interviewing ex-CIA, FBI, tons of people in the alternative media community for years. And he's hit on a lot of topics and foreign policy stuff. Obviously 9/11 was a hot topic. OKC, I mean, MK Ultra. I mean, he hit on all these topics. And then they acted like he created his empire off Sandy Hook. Isn't he the Sandy Hook guy? Isn't he? And it's like, no, he's not the Sandy Hook guy. What the hell was he talking about before Sandy Hook for years and years and years and years, every day on the air, Monday to Friday? I'm like, Sandy Hook didn't even happen yet. And he already created an empire. So it's like, he's not the Sandy Hook guy. They make you believe he's the Sandy Hook guy, so then you can just completely discredit everything he ever says or does. But I'm like, he's not the Sandy Hook guy. I don't even know what that means. He's a Sandy Hook guy. Like he didn't do a show just on Sandy Hook. He didn't, like, that's not what he talked about Monday to Friday. To me, I'm getting worked up even talking about this. I'm starting to turn into Alex Jones. But you get what I mean? Do you guys agree with me or not agree with me? What do you guys think?
No, I agree 100% with you. You're right, and he's been right on a lot more than he's been wrong on. I'll give him that.
Well, I remember the Pizzagate conversation that he had on Joe Rogan, and Joe Rogan. I know some people are like, "Oh, I don't like how he was fact checking Alex Jones the whole show," and I agree, but I think he was doing it for the purpose of actually making him seem less crazy. I think he wanted the audience to be like, listen, I'm not going to give him a free pass to say whatever he wants. We're going to, look up every story that he's mentioning and referencing, and then let's see what we find. And I think he knew that there was some evidence of truth to the majority of things he was talking about. And, with the Pizzagate thing, it was like the same thing. It's like, well, what the fuck does it mean when Obama says, and I don't know if it was Obama or Hillary or whoever it was that said, like, I want to order 150 pizzas or whatever, cheese pizzas or, any of this.
Obama, Podesta was a couple of them.
All of them,
Yeah.
how do you justify all that? I mean, how do you justify all the weird? It seemed very cryptic. It's like it was obvious that they were disguising what they're actually saying. So it's like that you can't deny. So it's like, when Alex Jones says it, he sounds crazy, right? But then when you start dissecting it and taking your time to really look at the emails and what he's referencing, you're like, oh wait, there is some evidence here. It's the same thing. Pizzagate was a perfect example of like everybody talked about this one detail of the story. Oh, that crazy guy went in there and looked for the basement that didn't exist. It's like, okay, but are you going to completely discredit and ignore all the other weird things, like the fact that the guy who owns the pizzeria had all this weird Instagram posts and all his links to all the politicians, and like there's still some weird shit there. Just because one thing could be discredited doesn't mean you can discredit all of it. So to me, it's just it's a really convenient way of getting people to just discredit everything related to it. So it's like, oh, Pizzagate. Now everybody looks at it as a crazy conspiracy theory that has no evidence or truth to it. I've had people say that. They're like, oh, the Pizzagate thing, just a conspiracy theory. Because I remember there's been a few times where I remember having discussions with people, and I'm like, most conspiracy theories, there's a lot of evidence there, and there's a reason why they exist and stay alive, and people believe these things. It's not because there's just the world's full of crazy people that will believe anything. It's that, especially in the alternative media community, like a lot of these people have found so many truths and evidence of crazy things they couldn't imagine, that now they're skeptical of everything. And I'm like, I think that's what ends up happening. I think when you find out that this is a lie and that is a lie and that's a lie and he's lying to you and this is illusion and this is propaganda, like you realize that like it never stops, that it could all possibly be. That's why even like, and I think Ronnie and I have talked about this, even the flat earth thing, I'm not completely, it's not out of the realm of possibility that the experts, quote unquote, are lying to us about, what shape the earth is. It could be a giant floating penis. I don't know. It could be. Imagine that. If there's some like,
It's hollow.
hollow.
Yeah, for sure.
The balls are hollow, right? On the floating penis.
Yeah, they're both hollow. The penis and the balls. That's my conclusion.
Do you really think it's hollow? Is that your
Yeah, I actually you can believe stuff like when you choose to believe something, I choose to believe the earth is hollow. That's I believe Admiral Byrd and his stories.
That
I
is
don't know.
crazy. Isn't that bird story another perfect example of like the craziest conspiracy theory that everybody dismisses? You do a little, it doesn't take a whole lot. You just do a little bit of research and you're like, oh shit, there's some evidence here. Like there's some shit that doesn't make sense. Now I understand why people believe this. Like there's something there. It's not just a crazy person who sees a shadow in the woods and says, I believe in Bigfoot. Like it's like, no, there's actual like some weirdness to this that I'll just subscribe to this idea because there is some weirdness there and some things that don't add up and make sense. Is that the what do you guys have any weird conspiracies that maybe are out of the ordinary that you guys think there's something there that maybe the average person don't believe?
I think the the Las Vegas, the Route 91 shooting, I think there's way more to that than is being put out there. I just dropped
So
a
what's
link
the
to it.
theory there? What do you think happened?
Well, there was more than one shooter for sure. There was also helicopters that were in the area, black helicopters. There's this whole thing. So this chick did an awesome
Is that the documentary I also watch? Probably.
is the
Another.
one with a blonde actress or somebody from Hollywood that used to, and then she turned into a documentarian from Vegas.
I got a link to a pallet wood project for garden. You may be linked the wrong link
Uh-oh.
because I'm pretty sure I've seen the things you're talking
No,
about.
yeah, no, that wasn't.
And that's like a 2 hour thing. So yeah.
Hold on a second.
But yeah, the he for sure didn't do shit. The weirdest thing about that is when they put out the video and said that he was killed, and they had fresh shell cases over the blood that wasn't bloody.
Is
That doesn't make sense.
Is this the same Vegas shooter, the big story where he just was in a hotel and just shot up a bunch of people?
Yeah, supposedly one guy.
So there's a documentary, and it's not like a conspiratorial documentary. It's actually
I think it's the one that Sean is talking about that he's trying to send us.
I'll show you the one that this is the one that I'm talking about. It's called What Happened in Vegas, the worst police force to call during a mass shooting. And it's
think maybe I don't know the name. I saw something like was like 2.5, 3 hours long. It went through all the airports landing, the helicopters, the turning off the radars and all the stuff, and all the like 15 different video angles of people hearing shootings and all. It was chaos. So yeah, maybe.
Well, this one's in a way, I was disappointed and not disappointed, because I was disappointed because it didn't really get into the specifics of the shooter that much and that type of stuff. It got more into how corrupt the police station was and all the like really shady things that, you know, in regards to the Vegas police. So, which I guess, you know, if you put all the pieces together, it starts making more sense when you realize like how corrupt the Vegas police are and really how they could contribute to, you know, something happening. So it's another piece of the puzzle. I'm not sure what piece or how big of a piece it is, but it's definitely a good documentary to watch to start, you know, molding your perspective on what happened there. So, and I actually have this up too, because I know Sean sent this. I'm not sure. I would have to watch
this one right here. Talks about
historic show.
It starts talking about Pizzagate stuff towards the end. There's a blonde woman who starts talking about it. And from what I understand from the person I got this from, that like every time she tried to post this somewhere on social media, it got removed immediately. So it's talking about Hollywood from a guy who was a stunt guy in Hollywood for years. And so like he was in the industry and he never really paid attention to like all of the cultish type of things, the iconography and stuff like that was always at some of these folks' houses that he'd visit. And so it just goes through his story and how he kind of, you know, came to like, oh shit, there's really something here. And then the one that I put up there, the other, it's Route 91. And that was the other side of it. So it was like a lot of the police scanner content of the shootings that were happening simultaneously all across town. She put together that around the time that this happened, before that, George Soros shorted the MGM stock. And so once this happened, then the stock went down and he made a shitload of money. And so this is something that I think that this individual is capable of, you know what I mean, choreographing and setting up. I mean, he's probably one of the ones that, you know, puts the pallets of bricks around, you know, and scatters them around a town before a riot's going to happen, or they, you know, try to kindle the fire for one.
Well, I've heard all types of theories in regards to that Vegas shooting, that he was a weapons dealer. I've heard, you know, people talk about his family. I mean, that always seems to be the case in regards to shooters. You know, if it's a school shooter or whatever, you do a little bit of research on their background and you find out like they have links to some really weird people, you know, and some weird connections in regards to like who their fathers are, or mothers are, or uncles or whatever. So it's yeah, I mean, the cool thing about YouTube back in the day is that you could go down these rabbit holes on YouTube. I mean, I didn't even have to go on Rumble or BitChute or Odyssey or Rockfin or anything. I could go on YouTube and just find some of these documentaries that, you know, kind of look like, you know, I'm not making fun of Ryan Dawson, but looked a little bit like Ryan Dawson's documentaries, where it's just like, it's really good information. It looks like something that somebody just did on, you know, a basic computer using like, you know, whatever, a basic program. It's not like a really fancy documentary that looks but it was some great information, you know, and there was a bunch of, I mean, there's quite a few documentary filmmakers that were on YouTube that I loved, that every time they put out something, and they, you know, there's a few of them too. I can't remember. I wish I could remember their names. One thing that I lost when I had my YouTube channel deleted was I had a playlist of documentaries that I, you know, over the years, I would just find interesting documentaries on YouTube and I would put it on in a playlist, and I had it available for anybody who went on my channel to see. And of course, like a lot of documentaries, I'd have to find them again because they would get deleted or the person would get you know, removed off YouTube or whatever it may be. But it was cool just to have that archive. And you know, now it's like I couldn't even imagine. I had who knows how many hundreds of documentaries all in this playlist. And I mean, that just comes to show you how many interesting documentaries used to be on YouTube. And now it's like you can't find shit on YouTube. You know, it's, you could find a little bit, you know, as long as it's not like a super controversial topic, but you can't, you know, you can't go down any child trafficking, pedophilia, elite type of stuff, or you can't go down like, you know, you know, just so many rabbit holes that you just can't find anything vaccine related, big pharma related, you know, homeopathic, the history of that type of stuff.
On that topic,
What's
I
that?
want to I want to share my screen for 1 sec
Yeah, definitely.
and share sound. So just this one. If you haven't read it, he has been talking to Larry Fink, the CEO of BlackRock, and how they're gonna build Ukraine up again. And I'm like, we all knew this was coming, but why are they doing it publicly? That's my question. I'm totally derailing everything here. You guys probably had some stuff
No.
to talk about, but what's about, why would Ukraine come out like, we're going to the World Economic Forum and we are going to talk with BlackRock how to build our country again? I don't know why do it publicly? Because the people that don't care doesn't know anything about it. So why do it publicly? That's my question.
BlackRock just came out and said that they were, you know, there's going to be a downturn like no other, you know, on the backside of who did it just like a month ago. It was who the fuck is that guy? Amazon guy. And then also, you know, he came out and said we're, you know, headed for a downturn, and he had just laid off like 10,000 people.
Jeff Bezos, I guess.
Yeah, him. So I mean, they're telling us what's going to happen.
Bill Gates came out last week and said 60 million people is going to die in the next pandemic. I'm like, what do you mean the next pandemic? What the fuck is going on here? BlackRock and World Economic Forum is working with Ukraine, and Bill Gates is going to kill 60 million people. I have questions.
Well, what about all that FTX money that went to Ukraine and boomeranged around back in fiat to the Democratic Party?
Yeah, that's a fucking rabbit hole in itself. That's like a 2-hour discussion. I mean, it's so fucking disgusting, everything that's going on. I was talking with my girlfriend just before I came on here, and I was like, my goals for 2030 is paying off my debt and getting sober, as I'm not today, as you may have noticed, and also getting smoke free and debt free, and then start saving and buying a house, just because Klaus Schwab say I will now own nothing. I will make my goal to own something. So that. But the question is, how do you invest without investing in these guys? That's the fucking question I have. If you can answer that, I will give you $1,000. I mean, how do you invest without investing in these billionaire idiots? Because that's easy.
Invest in yourself. You can invest in and anybody else because it's too they're connected in every angle. You know what I mean? It's there's no
Yeah,
unless
but
it's
Sean,
unless it's something private. But I mean, if you want to like corporate money, I mean, dude, they're all tied together.
yeah, I mean that, but I mean, I can't start. Well, I can start a business. I don't know what kind of business I would start, but I'm not a genius. I'm just a guy doing my thing. So how would one invest if you're not going to invest in the big corporations? Do you have do you guys have any ideas? Have you seen a company out there that we should invest in? Because I told my girlfriend, I know everything they're doing. And I showed her like a company that I could have invested in that would give me 30% money. Like it's easy. They're telling us what they're doing. But if you don't want to give them money, how do one get rich without doing that? That is the $1 million question I have.
So you're
How do you guys
so you're saying how do you invest?
invest
Invest is
with
a general statement. Do you mean like start a business? Do you mean like
no. Just invest in stocks without make like putting money in stocks that they own.
that doesn't benefit the elite?
Yeah. And
Uh,
how do you get rich with that?
no,
Because
no, we might as well talk about unicorns.
yeah, I mean that's the issue. I told my girlfriend like I know if we want to buy a house in 2030, I know exactly what companies we should invest in. And she basically told me, well, you will be alone then. I'm like, yeah, because I bought her the Alex Jones book and she is now she is now she the funniest thing, she was coming with me today, and in the Alex Jones book he had a quote from Albert Bola, the Pfizer CEO, that they have pills that you ingest and they see the data. And I was like, let's just close some tabs here because I was looking at something else. And I put up a document where I had like 10 links to everything to that subject. And she was like, okay. And then I told her, I had another book I wanted to buy you, but I think you don't need to know everything I know because then we'll both be drinking beer at night. So, yeah, I don't know. I don't know if this information is good for anybody. I'm like really I'm the guy in the Matrix that like fuck it. I want to taste the meat again. I don't know how to do this without going back in the Matrix. You have any suggestions?
You might want to find a alternative route to wealth, because the thing about the stock market is it's rigged. It
But
really
it is so easy though. They're telling what they're doing. It's so easy. If
I
you
know what you mean. Like, so knowing what the elite are trying to do, you can invest in the companies that they're, pushing and that they're investing in or controlling. Yeah, I mean, I get that. I mean, and honestly, if you can get rich doing that, then aren't you in a way like screwing them? Because in a way, you're like,
not really, because if you buy stocks, they're benefiting. So.
yeah, but you're
Well, by wealth creates freedom to a certain extent. You
exactly.
know what I mean? And that's the last thing that they want. And they've made it so difficult to attain it that it's, you know what I mean? I think the last loopholes that there were back in 2008. And that was just that test run, right? Because too many people were able to buy houses on the back end of that. So they were like, oh, no, no, no. So when they did it this time, they made sure nobody was working and that loophole was sealed up. So nobody had any money to buy distressed assets except for BlackRock and Vanguard and all these other folks because they were the only ones that, nobody was working and had, some income that they were willing to part with for any of these distressed assets that are still coming about. So, I mean, it's all planned.
Yeah, I mean, he's right. I mean, money. We were talking about FU money, right? I mean, if you could get rich off them being dumb enough to put the information out there and tell us exactly what they're doing, and then you probably will just reinvest in use that money to reinvest in your podcast, use that money to have more free time to research, or you'll end up having liver poisoning or something from drinking too much. But that's the alternative ending to your story. But I like to believe that's not what's going to happen. You are going to, you're going to use that to invest in your podcast and grow it and do more research and have more free time to think about these issues and analyze them and whatnot. So you know what, like, that's not what they want. They don't want somebody like you. They don't want to share their wealth with you. With somebody like you. They want to share their wealth with somebody who doesn't know about the Matrix and will just play along and not use that money against them in any way possible. So, I mean, it's no different than right using some of the tech that we use, our phones or whatever it may be. There's a price we pay for that. Obviously, we're also giving up. I mean, buying a smartphone, you could say, is a similar issue where it's like, okay, how do I not give money to these companies that are mining for these minerals in Africa, or give money to these big corporations, or how, but at the end of the day, if I'm using their platform or their product against them, then in a way, like I almost feel like then I'm winning in a way, because I'm like they don't want people to use their platform or their products as a weapon against them. So yeah, but I get what you mean. It's like I've thought about that in the past, where I'm just like, I wonder if anybody in the alternative media community that really keeps up with every story and all these agendas has ever used that knowledge for investments, for like spending time like analyzing like what companies they're pushing or working with or whatever, and then using that in the stock market. I mean, I'm not, to me, like, I'm not a person who spends much time thinking about that type of stuff, but if there's somebody who could use that as a means to an end, making some money, then I don't think anybody in the alternative media community would be mad at you for it. It's like, hey, I know I'm going to war, so let me invest in Lockheed Martin or Halliburton or whatever. So, but by the way, I'm going to use that money to buy a new microphone, which I'm going to scream about how corrupt Halliburton is in this microphone. So it's so yeah, it's. But I get what you mean. I get your dilemma of like, okay, in a way, I feel like I'm playing along, helping them. I'm playing a rigged game. But you hear Sam Tripoli talk about it sometimes. It's like, knowing that there's a game being played and then going along with it, or playing along to try to get ahead. um I guess it's a conversation, right? Like how much of it means that you're contributing to it, or how much of it is because it's like, I this is just, I didn't create this game, but I kind of have to play it to survive. But I guess if you relate that to politics, right? I mean, wouldn't we blame a politician who would say, because now I'm contradicting myself. I do this all the time while I'm sharing my ideas. My ideas are changing. But if you're a politician, right, and you say, hey, I know I lie. I know I take money from corporations and lobbyists or whatever, but I'm a part of this matrix. I'm a part of this game. And the only way I can succeed is if I play along. I mean, how would you take that? Would you look at him as like, okay, I get his perspective, or would you be like, no, you should do what's morally right, regardless if it means sacrificing your career, right? Is that a similar kind of question or example?
Yeah, I agree. But I've been thinking about this today, and if you go to politics, if I would be in the Matrix, and how would I run like politics in Finland? I would be a centrist, like in the middle of we have 8 parties. But if you ask me how do I like it to be run, I would be right anarchist, something close to that. So it's a difference if I'm gonna play the game, I'm in the middle. If I'm gonna to do it my way, I'm a right anarchist. So that's also what I'm thinking about how to invest. So I'm like, I could have invested in what was it was some company that made the needles for the vaccine or gene therapy at actually is, but yeah. And I'm like, yeah, I don't know. Should one invest? Should one not? I mean, it's a good investment because they are telling us this is gonna happen. So it was a 35% increase in like 5 years. So I don't know. Now I'm actually starting to think about listening to the World Economic Forum and actually putting money in what they're saying because it doesn't matter. Everyone I'm talking to doesn't give a shit. So I mean, I can at least get money for myself and hopefully survive and let the others like go into the matrix. I don't know. It's a dark pill, but yeah, that's my thoughts.
Well, I wouldn't judge you. I would I would understand. It's like, hey, if you have this information, you can either do nothing with it, or if you can make some money off it, then why not? Again, that we're not the type of people they want succeeding in anything. They want us to just be slaves to the machine. So if you're using the tools you have and the knowledge you have and the research you have and the information you have to make money and have live a better life, then I don't think anybody can blame you for that. And it's not like you're doing something. It's not like you're the one hiring these African kids to the mine for your minerals. It's not like you're the one forcing these Asian workers to work in these sweatshops. You're not doing any of that stuff. You're detached from that. The argument, but again, I get the counter argument, like, are you contributing to any of that? But we're all contributing one way or another. I'm wearing a Portugal national soccer team track jacket. Probably wasn't made in Portugal, probably Thailand or something like that, in some sweatshop. My phone has conflict minerals and all this stuff in it. There's tons of things that you can dissect and say, hey, we're contributing to the issues of the world. So I guess you got to draw the line somewhere and say, hey, like, if I want to enjoy life to my fullest and have the capability of keeping up with the news with my phone and having access to my email and be able to share my podcast online as conveniently as possible, like, some sacrifices might be made. And am I okay? So here's one way of looking at it. Is the difference that's going to be made with me protesting and saying I will not use a smartphone, I will not use anything that's linked to any of these elites or any conflict minerals or any of these big corporations that don't treat their employees well or outsource to these other factories that don't treat their employees well? If I protest, how big of a dent am I making in the system compared to me saying, like, okay, I'll make some sacrifices, I'll buy the phone, I'll use whatever computer or whatever it may be, but I'm going to use it to spread some information and expose some of these people. Like, which one's going to make a bigger difference, me protesting or me saying, like, okay, well, maybe my way of protesting or me making a difference isn't, or the method of me making the bigger difference won't be me protesting and refusing to use these things, but maybe I can make a bigger difference if I do use some of these things, but I use them to get this information out there and spark these conversations. So, that's another way to kind of look at things. I mean, one thing I love about podcasts is that, if you're open to dissecting ideas, you realize most things aren't that simple. It's not that cut and dry. There's a lot of gray area. Just like, this beautiful discussion that you sparked, Ronnie. Like it's a great discussion because it makes you analyze it, and it makes you realize that, like, okay, some things aren't black or white. Like they're a huge gray area, and you can make good arguments for either side. And I think most of our lives are like that, So um I don't have a whole lot of time left, and I've been doing a lot of freaking talking, which as you guys know, is my problem. And what do you guys? Is there anything you guys want to talk about? Was there any topics you guys wanted to hit on, or anything you want to share? Anything going on in New Year's, in 2023 that you guys have right around the corner? I know some of you guys,
I actually put in your Patreon, if you didn't see, my 2030. The one I said in the Patreon, they're gonna meet in Switzerland again soon. So the Agenda 2030 for me is I'm gonna be smoke free, alcohol free next year. I'm gonna drink and smoke as much as I can this couple of days because I have this week off from work. Thank you, my boss. And in 2025, I'm hopefully gonna be loan free, and in the same year, I'm gonna start like trying to gather, like seriously, getting some serious thought in how to invest my money. And in 2030, when Klaus Schwab said I will own nothing, I will buy a house. So that's my Agenda 2030. And that's why I'm asking how to invest without investing in this, like the conspiracy companies, because I know exactly how to invest in them. That would be easy. I don't think we got an answer to that, but I would like to hear you guys, like, if Agenda 2030, how do you see life in 2030? What's your goals?
Well, have you guys watched Terminator? That's 2030. It's going to be man versus machine. Neuralink will be everywhere. Will which is great, because once you realize that a life of not smoking and drinking sucks, you're going to rebound hard, and then you're going to need to download your consciousness into a robot. That I'm kidding.
So what the freaking going to do in 2030? What's your goal?
What's my goal to accomplish now till 2030?
Yeah, to not be own nothing and be happy.
I am really simple. Like, obviously one goal is always like have no debt, so you have a little bit more control of your own destiny and not be, not being stuck financially and with a lack of freedom. So like, yeah, have less debt would always be a goal. Another one would be just continue to do what I'm doing and not let it ruin my worldview, the way I live, the way, I try to be a happy-go-lucky person in my personal life, even though, most of us spend a lot of time down these very dark rabbit holes. But I'm going to do my best to continue doing that. Like, enjoy every moment, enjoy, the gift that is the present, and it's to me, like, that's really important. It's, like I always keep saying on the show, like, don't spend so much time fighting for freedom that you stop enjoying some of that freedom and enjoying your life, so and just continue hopefully growing this podcast, and hopefully by 2030 it gives me plenty of time to eventually get enough financial support to do this podcast full time. That'd be really my ultimate goal, is to just continue doing what I love, keep doing these, I don't need a bigger house, I don't need a newer car, I don't need anything else. Like, if I can just kind of sustain where I am, I'd be happy, and just hopefully slowly. I'm a very content person. I'm one of those people that, like, I always tell myself, I'm like, stop bitching about what you don't have and start being grateful about what you do have, because your worst day is somebody else's best day, and somebody always has it worse. And it's all perspective. It's like if I, when we do work in some really poor area of some Massachusetts city like Springfield or Holyoke, and all these houses are boarded up and falling apart, and you see real crackheads and real drunks around every corner. And then you come home to your house and you're like, fucking, I am so grateful for the fact that I have like a somewhat safe community, and I live in a nice neighborhood, and I don't mean nice as in like ritzy, but just nice as in like safe. And I have a car, and I have I have clothes, and I have a family, and I'm just grateful for those things. And I have friends, and like you guys, and many other friends that I have. Like I have people I can talk to and hang out with that I like and enjoy my company. So and that's my perspective when I work in places like that. And then if you drive by a really rich neighbor, like last time we were in Florida, my wife has family in Florida, so we go down there from time to time. And they're always like, "Oh, drive by here. This is where all these celebrities live." And you drive by these houses that like you couldn't even imagine. Well, guess what feeling I have when I'm like, you see some kid who looks like he's 18 driving in a brand new Land Rover, and some kid driving around in a new Bentley, and whatever, and you see Lambos and Ferraris. You know what that makes you feel like? Like you're the most unaccomplished person ever. You're just like, what the fuck? Like, what do they do right? I'm like, what do they understand that I don't understand? Like, how do they get to that level of success? And I'm talking about, trying to get out of debt, So to me, it's all perspective, right? Like I said, it's like my life hasn't changed, regardless of where I go. If I'm going to the poor areas of Holyoke or Springfield, or if I go into ritzy areas in Boca Raton and Florida, my life hasn't changed. So the only thing that's changed is my perspective on my life. So, which means what? Like, it means that we have control of the way we see things, and we have control of the way we feel about things by just changing the way we look at things in a more positive way. So, actually, I think this is this turned out, Ronnie, you're killing it today. This is such a great discussion to kind of end, the year in the podcast, because, and of course, like I want you guys to share your thoughts, but before we shut it down. But I think this is a really good message. Like, be grateful for what you have. Like, yeah, we've all been through a lot of shit the last couple of years, but we're all here. Like we're all here. Maybe not all our friends and family are here. We've lost some good ones along the way, but hug and kiss and enjoy the ones that are still here. Like, my wife, the last couple of years, she's lost a lot of like really close family, including her mother and whatnot. And it's made her so depressed and down that it ends up getting in the way of her enjoying the people that are still here. It's like, well, you know what? Like, every time you lose a loved one, it should be a reminder that tomorrow's not promised. It can happen to anybody, anywhere, anytime. And hug and kiss and love the people that are in your life more, because you don't know when, how much more time you have with them, So it's really easy to go down the rabbit hole of being depressed, and then you just kind of spend so much time being sad that you spend no time, because it's very difficult, of course, being grateful for the people you still have, So but I think that's important. It's really, you can always find something you're grateful for. You can always find something that you have more than others. And of course, there's always people who have a better life, but there's a hell of a lot more people who have a worse life. And there's always, like I said, something to be grateful for and appreciate. And and that's something. I'm so far from Ronnie's initial question that I don't even know what his initial question is.
Well, I can ask the question again. For Sean and Jeff, what's your goal to counter the Agenda 2030?
Well,
So what's your goal for your agenda for Agenda 2030? My goal was to get sober, smoke free, debt free in a few years, and then save up to buy a house. So what's your goals?
my goal is to make all the gay frogs straight. I want them straight.
That's not gonna happen. Monsanto is still owning us. But
Oh, Jeff, Sean, how about you? I think somewhere in that long rant, somebody can find an answer to Ronnie's question. If you guys want to give it a shot.
You know, I was always told by my grandmother, you know, you need to invest in yourself first before you can invest into anything else, which at the time, you know, it's kind of hard to understand that. But then when you get older and you think about it, you know, they're actually right. You know, 2030 is a long ways off. And what you just said, Ricky, is, you know, I ain't worried about 2030. I need to get through next week. And, you know, you got, like you said, I mean, um, you know, I lost my wife 2 years ago to cancer, and that was like the end of my family. I mean, I had nothing left. So, you know, that what you just said hit hard, and it's like, man, that's so true. So, you know, I just live one day at a time.
Yeah, my wife lost her mother to cancer and lost her grandmother to cancer, all, you know, pretty close to one another. And you know, she's just had a lot of family members have had some really poor luck in regards to health and diseases and stuff like that. So yeah, God bless you, Jeff. Like I you know, being an outsider looking in, because you know, again, I haven't I wasn't directly, you know, a mother or a brother, you know, it wasn't somebody. I was kind of I felt like a spectator watching it all. But you know what, it does hit it's really hard to bounce back from, and it's hard to find a light at the end of the tunnel when, you know, you feel like you've been thrown down a much darker, longer tunnel than everybody else. And it's you know, it's tough, but you know, glad to see that you're still smiling. And you know, honestly, you know, nobody, that's why you never know what people have been through. You know, you've been on the show, you're typically
No.
in a great mood, and you're usually smiling and always bringing some positive energy. And you know, I think it's a great message for people listening, like, hey, you know what, if you can still smile after what you've been through, then who the hell are we to, you know, complain about shit?
Yep, exactly. And you know, just imagine if we had an expiration date that was on our wrist, that we knew what day we was going to die. Imagine how we would live life differently if we did know. But see, we don't. So, you know, we have to make the best out of every day before we can. That's why I don't plan on anything in the future. I mean, you can make those plans, but if something happens, then what? You know, you're gone, and there's nothing. You have to take care of what you have now.
I have friends that are like that. They talk about like, oh, by the time I'm 50, I'll do this. By the time I'm 60, I'll be doing, you know, but, and it's like,
Mhm.
anytime you look at life in those, you know, in that big picture, and I'm sure there's some benefits in doing that, but if you get too caught up in that, you get too caught up in that idea that you're going to make it that long, uh, you end up living like you're certain you're going to, you know, be alive for that long. And I think that's the wrong way of living. Like you can't take any, like you said, you can't take any day for granted. And anytime you have these long, you know, big picture, you know, ideas of like, oh, well, you know, I'm going to invest, or I'm going to start this business, and I'm going to retire when I'm this year, and I'm going to do, and then, you know, retire with the wife and travel the world at this age. You're, you know, if you live for those years later in your life, and you kind of try to build everything towards that, you might be hit, like you said, with a curveball that you never even make it there, you know. So it's like, don't spend too much time focusing on that where you don't enjoy the now, you know. So yeah, without a doubt. Sean?
Yeah, man. All good goals so far. For myself, I would say I'm more kind of in that same camp where, nothing is guaranteed. You can stack them and stash away for a long time, and that day will never come because something happens. So I think my goals, are more along Jeff, personal stuff, you know what I mean? Things that I can have a little bit more control over changing, and figuring out some of the things this year with the podcast, and just really understanding how unorganized I am and how undisciplined I am in trying to do a lot of these things, and how, like, okay, well, I play tricks on myself all the time, and the ADD thing, and it's just been really interesting to watch myself sort of fumble around with the podcast, and not getting to a whole bunch of episodes that I did a long time ago, back when we first met, still hadn't published. And so it's just been one of those sort of an awakening, amongst the other awakenings that have been happening, of, hey, I can't really progress the way that I want to progress until I figure out how to manage these things over here. Because if I can manage these, then a lot of this other stuff will figure itself out along the way. I'm trying to do too much. That's really what I don't want to do.
Well, that's that I remember when I was younger, I was always really fascinated with like psychology and relationships, what made them work and didn't work, and all the chaos that came with it, and why it would bring out some of the best in you and also some of the worst in you. And one thing that was always true was like, hey, you know what? Like, I can't be happy with somebody else if I'm not happy with myself first. Like, I have to be in a good place. I have to learn to be myself, be comfortable in my own skin, have my life worked out, and be in a good physically and mental place. Then I can share the happiness that I'm living in with somebody else. But if I depend on somebody else for happiness, that's usually a bad road to go down, because many people depend on somebody else for their own happiness. And then next thing you know, when when you break up or whatever, then next thing you know, you're like, oh shit, I'm heartbroken. She left me. It's like, well, because maybe you weren't too comfortable. You're depending on somebody else for your happiness. So, without a doubt. But these are all great messages, and I think self-reflection and really analyzing these thoughts and ideas and is always super important, and I think super beneficial for people listening to just pump the brakes and spend some time to look inward instead of outward, because I think a lot of times we spend so much time analyzing the news or the elites or current events that we end up losing focus, that maybe we should spend some time analyzing ourselves and why we're doing things and why we're feeling certain ways, or why we're procrastinating, or why we're unhappy, or why we're ungrateful, or any of these other things that I think are super important. So but thank you so much, guys, for being with me from the bottom of my heart. I really appreciate the support. I really appreciate you guys always taking time out of your day to have a cold one, Ronnie, and hang out so late in the night. And thanks, Jeff. Thanks, Sean. Thanks, Jeff, for being so open. Sean, as always, thanks so much for joining us and whatnot. Hopefully, you guys can plug your shows and let people know where they can get your shows. And also, Jeff, if you ever start a podcast, feel free to come on and promote it. But
Sure.
but if not, hopefully people will until you have your own podcast, people will hear you on this show from time to time. But Sean, Ronnie, you want
Yeah.
your
I'll go. I'll step up to the plate. So my podcast is the Nowhere to Go But Up podcast, and that's available everywhere in all the podcast players, YouTube, everywhere. Or you just go to my link tree, which is linktr.ee/nowhere to go but up, and that'll take you to all the links and all the places where I'm at. Thanks, Ricky. I appreciate it, man.
thanks, Sean.
And my podcast is Enlighten Me with Ronnie, and I'm also wherever you're looking for podcasts. Also still on YouTube. You believe it or not. I'm dodging the suspensions as best as I can, and I've been a bit lazy this past 2 weeks because holidays, life, but I'm gonna hopefully get some interesting guests. And the one guest I'm looking for the most is going to speak Swedish, so it's not for Rikis. Like, who, not your guys, whatever it's called in your language. But yeah, enlighten me, Ronnie. And 99% of the podcasts are in English, as best as I can pronounce English, whatever. Yeah, thank you.
What's
Went too long.
is I can barely speak English when I have a buzz. The fact that it's your second language and you could still get your thoughts across is pretty impressive. I'll
I'm
pull.
doing my best.
Listen, that's why we love you, Roddy. You're the type of guy we all want to hang out with and have a drink with. But mostly because we assume you're paying. You know,
I am. And hopefully next year I'm the guy without a boss and still speaking English.
Without a buzz or a
the-
boss.
No, both. Both.
there,
Well, good luck on that, man. I hope you achieve that.
it's much more likely he'll be without a boss than a buzz.
Yeah, maybe.
Hopefully the buzz didn't cost the cause the without the boss situation.
Yeah, that would suck.
Well, thanks so much, guys. Hey, have a great end of the year. Hopefully we'll do another one of these. Work has slowed down quite a bit for myself, so I have I'm going to have a lot more free time. At least the first couple months of next year. So I'm hoping to do a lot more of these Patreon podcasts. So hopefully we can all catch up early next year. Have a fun and safe, celebration, whatever you're doing for New Year's, and hopefully you guys enjoyed Christmas and the holidays, and regardless what you believe or don't believe in or whatever. I'm not really a Christian or whatever. I'm not a practicing religious person, but I love the idea of gathering with family and having a reason to laugh,
Blasphemy.
drink, and so enjoy New Year's, and we'll talk again hopefully early 2023, guys. And I'll put links to Sean's and Ronnie's podcast in the show description. Please subscribe, check them out. If you guys have listened to this show for some years, there's without a doubt you have run into them on past episodes, and so we've done a lot of collaborations. They've been on the You've Done Wanted, so please support other podcasters like them, and we'll talk again, guys. Be safe. Thanks again. Have a great night, and we'll talk again, guys. Thank you so much.
See you, Ricky.
Thanks.
Yeah.
Take
Thank
care.
you.